Hey everyone, it's Tara. Welcome back to my channel, Tara Talks Books. Today I'm going to be doing a Book of the Month collection video for you. I have quite a few. I've been subscribed to Book of the Month for probably a little over a year, and then I'm part of a Facebook group that will trade books back and forth, or Book of the Month books back and forth. So I also do that, and that's why I have quite a few as well. So if you want to see what my collection looks like, just keep watching. The first one is I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys. This one is a YA historical fiction set in Romania during the dictatorship in 1989. Christian is 17 and he's forced to become an informer by the secret police. And so it follows his story from there. The next one I have is The Good Left Undone by Adriana Trigiani. This one is a multi-generational family saga, and it's between, like, the matriarch is dying in the family, so she wants to let her granddaughter and her daughter know of this family secret that she has, and it goes through that and her story. The next one I have is The Wedding Dress Sewing Circle by Jennifer Ryan, and this one is about three women set during wartime in Britain, and it's during clothes rationing, so wedding dresses are scarce, and so they make wedding dresses to kind of help the community, and it just follows their story. Seems like a good historical fiction. The next one I have is Atomic Love by Jenny Fields, and I know this one is kind of like suspenseful, set in Chicago in 1950. She's a physicist, and then she goes and she has to work with the FBI, or is asked to work with the FBI to follow like a former lover of hers who she also worked with during that time. So I think this is going to be a good, like, suspenseful historical fiction. The next one I have is by Kristen Hanna, and it's The Four Winds. This one I'm actually currently reading. It just started. And this one is set during the Great Depression, and it's about a mom or a woman who is taking her family from Texas to California during that time. And I have The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. And I know this one is the story of twins who grow up in, like, the segregated South, and then how they lead very separate lives when they're adults, but something brings them back together. And it spans, I know, from the 1950s to like the 1990s. So I'm excited to read that one. So the last historical fiction I have is Outlawed by Anna North. This one I think can also be considered Western fiction. This one's set in the Old West in 1894. Ada is 17. She gets married at the beginning of the book, but it's a year later, and she is not pregnant. And in her town, they hang women for being barren because they think it's witchcraft. So she has to run away, and she ends up running away and joining the Hole in the Wall gang. And the leader of that gang kind of wants to support outcast women, and it's kind of her story from there in that gang. So this one seems interesting and fun to read, and hopefully I'll get to it soon. So the next group of books are all mystery thrillers or like psychological thrillers. So the next one is A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham, and I think this is a debut for her. And this one is about Chloe Davis, and when she's 12 years old, she six like teenage girls go missing in her town, and then her father ends up confessing to the crimes, and he's put away for life. And so now it's like 20 years later, and more crimes are happening in Baton Rouge that are similar to like what was happening when she was 12. So she's trying to figure out, is she just making these connections, or are these connections real? And so I guess the story goes from there. Seems interesting. So the next one I have is The Push by Ashley Audrain, and this one is about Blythe, and Blythe has a daughter named Violet, and she starts to wonder if something is wrong with her daughter. She doesn't act like most children, and she just doesn't feel connected to her. And she talks to her husband, and her husband kind of just says, like, dismisses her fears and doesn't think, you know, he doesn't see that in her. And so it kind of goes from there. And then they have their son Sam, and he or she has that connection with him that she didn't have with Violet. And it's kind of like her facing the truth of motherhood and this expectation of motherhood that she thought she would have, and that now she's not having. So it's an interesting view, like a psychological thriller view on motherhood. So the next one is The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. And I know this one, it starts during 1977 in Clark Lake, Oregon, where a murder of 2 men happened, and a woman is seen fleeing the crime, and so she is taken into custody, but she ends up being acquitted, and she kind of like retreats to isolation. And then now it's Oregon 2017, and Shay is a blogger, and she wants to get in contact with this woman and do like an interview and a story with her. So she goes to this mansion where this lady now is, you know, reclusive, and where she stays, and weird things start to happen. And so it kind of just goes from there. So this one seems like an interesting mystery, and I can't wait to read it. So the next one I have is Razor Blade Tears by S.A. Cosby. And this one is about 2 men who are like former ex-cons, and that's pretty much all they have in common other than their 2 sons. Their 2 sons are married, and then they end up being murdered, and it goes, it kind of goes from there. They kind of team up together to see what happened to their sons and to potentially get revenge for their sons' murders. So this one seems interesting, and I really can't wait to read this one. So the next one I have is The Silent Patient by Alex Michalitis. And this one is about Alicia, who comes home one day, ends up shooting her husband, and then goes completely silent. And so it's like a few years after everything's happened, and a psychotherapist named Theo comes and like tries to get her to talk and figure out what happened, why she did that. And the story kind of goes from there. The next one I have is The Maid by Nita Prose. And this one is about Molly, who she kind of struggles with like social skills, and she misreads intentions of people. And recently her grandmother passed away, and so she's kind of like navigating life on her own. And one day she goes into work. She's obviously a maid. She finds a dead body, and she ends up being blamed for the murder. So it kind of goes from there, and you know what actually happened. So it seems like a fun and interesting mystery thriller. The next set of Book of the Month books I have are all like romance novels. And the first one is Things You Save in a Fire by Catherine Center. And I know this one is about Cassie, and she's a firefighter in Texas, but I think her mom ends up getting sick, and her mom wants her to move to Boston to help her. So she does. She ends up moving to Boston and gets a job as a firefighter there, but things are very different. They don't really want Cassie there. They're not too sure about her. And so she does end up, though, getting along with one of the firefighters, and they end up kind of like maybe falling in love, but she's not sure because one of her old captains said don't date firefighters. So she's kind of like going back and forth on whether she should. So this one seems interesting, and I can't wait to read it. So the next one I have is A Rogue of One's Own by Evie Dunmore. This is a historical romance, and it's the second in a series. I actually read the first one, so I want to give this one a try. And Lady Lucy is a suffragette, and her like group of suffragettes end up getting enough money to start a newspaper, and they wanted to start this newspaper so they can kind of like go against Parliament because they want to make change. One person like that is kind of standing in her way is Tristan, and her and Tristan kind of butt heads. But then are they butting heads because they kind of like each other? And it kind of goes from there. So it's interesting. So the next one I have is Beach Read by Emily Henry. And this one is about two writers, and they end up like next door neighbors at like a vacation house. And they kind of already know each other, I believe, from like college. And they're both, as writers, are in ruts. And so they kind of like switch pieces. I think one maybe writes romance and one's like literary fiction. And so they go and they do like adventures, or go get information on these writing pieces together for each other. And they kind of write the opposite pieces. And then I believe like love happens from there. So it seems like a good one to read during the summer. I mean, the title Beach Read. So hopefully I can get to it this summer. So the next one I have is also by Emily Henry, and it's People We Meet on Vacation. This one is about two best friends who go on vacation together, and then they have some sort of falling out. And so I think one of the characters wants them to kind of be friends again. And so she tells the I guess hero in the story, like, hey, let's go on one last vacation. Let's see if we can, you know, mend things. And it kind of goes from there. We kind of figure out, it goes from past to present, figure out what happened between them two, and to see if they can mend their relationship or more. Is The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. And this one is a like a Christmas story one. And this one is about twins who end up switching places. And then I guess in their other places, they end up finding a person that's right for them, but then they're not pretending, or they're pretending to be the other person. So kind of like, I guess, drama ensues from there. And it's kind of like almost like a Hallmark movie, I would assume. And so this one just seems like a cute Christmas or holiday read. So that was my entire Book of the Month book collection. Let me know if you've read any of those, and that if you've enjoyed them, or which one I should try and get to next. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I look forward to hearing from you. I'll talk to you later. Bye.